Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents, with me, your host Valerie, and sometime co-host Ms. Purrington. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page, and if you're listening to us, please rate and review us on iTunes. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, live shows, and now an events page for live shows featuring the best in Austin comedy in all its shapes and formats. Launched in 2016, the Podcast Project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and will usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. Today, we're talking to somebody who is a returning guest from 4 years ago, and since then, I've seen her open for Brian Callan. I have not seen her do this, but I know she's open for Tom Green and Michael Che, who is somebody that she talked about a lot on her original Comedy Wham interview episode, and she's opened for him since that original Comedy Wham interview. She's been on Moon Tower Comedy Festival, Fantastic Fest, where she was on The Meltdown with Jonah and Kumail. And even though we covered it in our original interview, one of my favorite videos to this day is Opciono Dos and the wonderful web series Pretty Awful with Katie Pengra. And you can still find those, so go find them. And perhaps this is a hint that she should do another web series. She was on the one and only Sure Thing Records compilation album that launched the label in 2014. And we are on the heels of her releasing her debut comedy album with Sure Thing Records on Valentine's Day called Teen Mom. And now Comedy Wham presents our returning guest, Amber Bixby.
Thank you so much for having me.
Hello.
I'm so excited to be here. Hello.
Hello. Welcome back.
Thanks.
One of the things that I usually do with these is I do an icebreaker question, and I give returning guests the option on whether or not they want to revisit their words.
Oh, I would love to.
Do you want to know? I don't presume that you remember what you said all that long time ago.
Oh, I do, because I think about it all the time. It keeps me up at night sometimes, I'll be honest.
Okay, this is a quiz.
I don't know what I said for future, but I think for past, I said something like turbulent or something, which was pretty negative. But I think I was talking more about my past and not just comedy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you did also add resilient, so that's a little more of a positive twist.
Okay, I forgot resilient, which is what I would say now, I think.
Yeah. So do you want to hold to those? Do you feel like after 4 years of life and comedy and experiences, do you still think of your past in that way?
I feel like one of the words that I've been thinking about a lot lately is somebody came up to me after a show and said that my jokes had a lot of feeling to it, and I was like, oh, that's all I've ever wanted to come across in my jokes. And so, just something with feelings. I just feel, I don't know. I think I have a lot of, I would say something like heart or, something like that.
Yeah. Do you feel that your comedy at some point before, whatever the timeline is, didn't have that?
Well, I feel like when you first start, you never know what you're doing. And I know that when I first started, one of the things was that I never wanted to talk about my daughter. I didn't want to talk about anything too personal, and I felt very protective, and I was kind of afraid to just talk about how I had my daughter as a teenager. And it's so funny because as soon as I remember somebody at some point saying, I think it was Lucas Melendez, said something like, well, you talk about your life on stage and you're leaving out this huge thing that makes you who you are and this huge part of your life. And I think as soon as I started talking about just being a young mom and having been a teenage pregnant person and my life in that way, it kind of just started pouring out, and now I'm just putting out this whole album. So I feel like as soon as I started doing that, that's when I really opened my heart up and started having more feeling. Because I think before that, I would talk about anxiety and depression, and those things are there's a lot of heart in those jokes too. But I feel like that's when I really allowed myself to be vulnerable, I guess, on stage, and trusted that the audience wouldn't just hurt me with their words or whatever.
Or silence.
Or
lack
silence.
of response.
Or just judgment.
Looking back at that, you probably built some really good skills by first doing comedy with the walls up and not really exposing yourself and being vulnerable to the audience. That, you're just basically adding a layer of skill and experience by, finally opening up more about your teen momness.
Yeah, I think it helps to build like a tough, like, exterior when you're just telling like, just here's a thing that happened to me that's just silly and dumb, and I went into the store and this happened. I feel like when you're doing comedy like that and it when you start, or you just don't know what you're gonna talk about, a lot of times you learn how to be on stage, you learn how to not take everything so personally, so then when you do start to become vulnerable, it still hurts to have bad sets, and it hurts to not connect with the audience, but you also are like, well, you've already kind of built up some of that resilience where you're like, this will feel bad tonight, but it's not gonna be something that I'm gonna harp on forever.
Yeah. Over the last 4 years since you last sat down with me, what are some of the highlights of your comedy career?
Oh man, I feel like I can't believe it's been 4 years.
I know.
And for one thing.
Well, you have a teenager now.
Yeah, that's very true.
Because I realized, I saw a post where you said she was a teenager, and I'm like, oh my God, I have a teenager too. So it's kind of like you reflect on your own life when you see it, come out in somebody else's life, and you're like, oh my God.
Yeah, she's in high school now. That's pretty crazy. So I guess working with Tom Green was amazing. I grew up with the Tom Green Show, and I grew up with those movies like Stealing Harvard and Freddie Got Fingered, and he's just the nicest, sweetest guy. And I got to have like a pretty real conversation with him at some point, and that was really, he's just so down to earth and fun and just easy to talk to. So that was definitely a highlight. I've worked with Michael Che, I guess 3 times now, and every time that guy comes into town, it's really fun. And so that's always a highlight. I worked with him this summer, and then also last summer again.
Just if I can interject too, that I was already a fan of his when you and I sat down, because I love him on Saturday Night Live, and that span of time between you and I sitting together, and then when I saw him come through again, and I saw that he had booked you again, I'm like, now that's a nice guy. That he remembers, he believes in you and your talent to open for him, or, whatever your capacity was, feature, whatever it was. I'm like, that's a good guy.
And he really is. He's the sweetest guy. And he's very fun, and funny. And I love him on Saturday Night Live. I think the Weekend Update is definitely always my favorite segment.
Yeah. I like the Christmas episodes the best, when they give each other's the jokes.
Yeah. That's incredible, because that is amazing, and you can just tell on their faces that when they're giving each other the jokes, Callan Jost and Michael Che, if you're not aware, they give each other the Christmas present of reading jokes aloud like on television that neither one of them have seen yet.
Yep.
And so they're just reading the prompt, and you could just see in their faces that it's so real. Like, oh no, I'm going to have to say this, and then they break, and it's just, that's brilliant. It's incredible.
Okay, so I wanted to do the little segue there. So that's two, memorable working experiences in comedy. Are there more?
Yeah, I would say, highlights was definitely the album recording. That was huge, and that's been a process of just that night. The show itself was a highlight. Just to feel like so supported by the club here and the community, and people that came out, but also, it was just so much like work and like processing beforehand of like, what jokes do I want to say? What order do I want to say them? And then you just polish and polish and polish and polish. And so that was definitely a highlight because I learned a lot from that, and it was fun, and that was just one of the biggest adrenaline rushes I think I've ever had as far as comedy. I met Wendy Davis, and I did a show with her, and that was maybe in March or April. And I mean, she was on a show promoting her. It was that time of the month. It's like Megan Ross's show, which is great. It's at Fallout. You guys should check it out. And she has women in the community who have like small businesses, who work at nonprofits. She also will have an all-female improv troupe come out, and then she has a stand-up, and she interviews people. But she had Wendy Davis come out and talk about her nonprofit work in her book, and then Wendy just went into the audience and sat down.
Oh my gosh.
And then I just had to go up and do my jokes, and I have some dirty jokes. So there was a moment like where I think I was texting a few friends like, do I do my dirty jokes in front of, like, I was planning on it, but now I'm like, am I going to be able to look at her? This is so weird. And I like, no, she would be, I'm not saying she would, I don't think she would judge me for it, but it's still like, I don't know, is this the first impression I want to give her? So then I didn't do the dirty stuff. But I did a few dark things, and I talked about being a teen mom, and then she came up to me, and I had met her briefly before and just like tried not to lose it completely, and got like pictures where I just look like I'm on drugs because I'm so excited. And then after the show, she came up to me and she was like, I was a teen mom too. And I just started bawling.
Oh my gosh.
And just started crying. And I was just like, well, you're my hero. And, and then, she said very nice things. She was like, this is what you're supposed to be doing. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. And then she said, what I want for you is just for you and your daughters, just always make goals and always work really hard to achieve those goals. As soon as you achieve them, set another goal. And she was like, and then eventually you'll be looking back on this like beautiful life that you've built for yourself, and it's like you and your daughter climbed a mountain, and that's what I want for you. And I was just like, I don't know, it's just in pieces. Beautiful. I was like, yeah, what a beautiful sentiment. And also it's just, it was, definitely like a highlight in my life. I'll never forget that moment.
Wow. That's stunning. That's amazing.
It was amazing. I wouldn't trade that night for anything.
Yeah. It's kind of crazy how the comedy life brings you like these weird random moments in your life, and sometimes, it's not so great moments, but then other times it's, powerful moments like that. And you're always going to remember to set those. You may already be a goal-oriented person, but you're never going to forget that, because you probably, like, whenever you think about goals, you probably see Wendy's face in front of you.
Oh, yeah. Well, it definitely helps, because I feel like there's this thing called goal-oriented depression, and I don't know if you've heard of it. They say like Lincoln. There's a book, Lincoln and Melancholy, something like that, but where they talked about how Lincoln would get very depressed anytime like he set out to accomplish something and he accomplished it. Then he would get very, really down. I didn't read the book, but my friend told me about it. But she was telling me to, because I get like that. So it's just, maybe I can just, just always remember Wendy's head and her saying that, and just, yeah. And then maybe that won't happen to me. Maybe I'll just be able to just set another goal, just like Wendy said.
Yeah. The album recording that happened in the fall, and it's been 4 or 5 months. Did you record in September?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was mid-September.
And your process for making decisions about the order of the jokes and just refining or tweaking, is that typically what you do when you're not recording an album?
It's funny because I told Matt Bearden, who's another amazing comic in town, and but I told him shortly after, it's like, I wish I always worked this hard at the polishing and the rewriting and reordering, and I just wish I had it in me to always work that. And I think because he was like, yeah. And then his wife, Kara, was like, well, then you would just burn yourself out. And I was like, oh, yeah, that's true. But I definitely am going to try to, now that I feel like I've honed those skills, try to carry it forward with me and do that more often.
Yeah. I don't know. That feels like you've been doing comedy for how long now?
Well, so consistently since 2010, and then I did a little bit before that, but I started comedy and then I had to move back home for 2 years, basically.
Right. Yeah, so, that's retraining how you've been doing things for the last 10 years, and you're recording an album, so it's kind of like studying for a final exam. You're going to push super hard, but maybe when you're just, taking notes in class, you don't have to push super hard, but you learn things that you can apply. I don't know. I'm just like, I can't imagine having the intensity nonstop 24/7 after you get through a recording.
Yeah, I definitely took a break, and I haven't been hitting it as hard since, which I'm about to start again.
Yeah.
With the release and everything, but I definitely was like just exhausted and felt like kind of delirious and just like, the adrenaline and everything, and then just people were telling me like, rest because you've earned it, and I feel like that is something I would definitely say to anybody else who records an album. It's just rest after, because you deserved it, you earned it, because that's such a process.
Yeah.
I had like charts and graphs and
oh my gosh,
and just like Google Docs and just things highlighted different colors and just everything. It was elaborate. It was a lot.
How close to this micromanaged, detailed plan did you get the recording to be? Obviously with the recording, there's the magic of audio work. Like that night. How close to your Google Docs and your roadmap?
Well, it was pretty close, but I will say that I was a bit looser just because just the adrenaline that hit that night, that doesn't always, that's just like a rare feeling of, that level of adrenaline is rare for me now. Like, it takes something special to feel that, like chasing the dragon kind of, but like for it to feel that like intense.
Yeah.
So I think I was a bit looser and than I wanted, and definitely when we were going through editing, I was like, there were times where I just felt a bit overwhelmed, so I would just stop and just drink water and be like, hey, you guys doing? You drinking water? What's happening? Where you're just like, I just need a minute to absorb all of this. This is a lot to take in.
One of the questions that I love to ask somebody who has recorded an album is, what is your standout memory of that night?
That night, well, and this will be on the album, but there's a few times I think I got made fun of a little bit.
What?
And I loved it. Nobody said anything, but there's a part where I have a joke about exercising, and so I started it, I work out, and I just heard someone just in the back, another comic, I'm sure, just start laughing. And I was like, all right. And then that was definitely, and then it happened again with something else. Or I opened this other joke with, I'm sure you're wondering what's wrong with me at this point. And then I heard, I think it was Matt Bearden at that point, just start laughing really loud. And I was like, all right, I'll give you a minute to get it out of your system.
You mentioned that you were about to go back to hitting it hard again. Are you like touring? What is it that's on your docket?
I would like
press. I'm guessing.
Yeah. I hopefully people review the album. I'm gonna send stuff out, but I'm gonna do as many shows here as I can. Traveling is hard for me with the kiddo and a full-time job. I have a show in San Antonio. I would like to do Dallas, Houston. I plan to go to New York and, visit and do a bunch of shows this summer. I'd like to go to LA in the fall if I can swing it financially.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just, and just trying to do... it's interesting because, with music it's different, whereas when a band records jokes, then... when a band records music, then they keep playing the music and people are really into it and they'll listen to it over and over. Whereas with comedy, it's essentially retired. And I've heard people say, well, it doesn't have to be, but that was kind of what I had in mind for most of these jokes anyway. I may pull one out every once in a while, but so I'm just trying to write as much as possible right now and get a new 30 again as soon as possible.
Yeah. That was one of my more philosophical questions that I wanted to ask you about, because you definitely have worn being a teen mom on your sleeve and with us as audiences for as many years as I've seen you perform. And I wanted to ask you, so are you going to be the comic that fully retires material, or are you going to repeat some of the things that are on your album? Is it you're closing a chapter, even though you're never not going to be a mom.
Right.
But, are you thinking of it kind of in this grand, majestic scale of, okay, I'm closing a chapter and I'm ready to start a new chapter?
I do have new jokes I've written about being a mom with a teenager or having had a kid young. So I have some more of those jokes, since I recorded the album, but essentially the idea is to just kind of push myself forward and stop telling the jokes that were on the album, maybe pull one out every once in a while if I'm having a bad set and I'm like, well, maybe this will work. But, and then, or if something just feels right in the moment. But it essentially just, I'm trying to find also just new things to write about. Whereas I feel like a lot of this stuff, I feel like I've touched every aspect of it that affects my life and put it into comedy as much as I can.
Yeah.
So.
As somebody who struggles with anxiety, yes?
Yeah.
Do you get scared about leaving some of these jokes behind?
Yes, I do. They're not as much as I thought I would, honestly. But maybe it's because when I went to Sure Thing Records and said I'm ready to record an album, can I do that? I went because I was like, I feel like these jokes have gotten me as far as they're going to get me. I've been doing this consistently about 10 years. I'm ready to put it out there and push myself in this way and start fresh. So anytime I start to feel anxious about it, I'm like, no, this is what I wanted to do. As an artist, I wanted to push myself in this way. And so, yeah, maybe when I'm doing more, I feel like as I put more distance between me and the album, I will definitely feel more of the anxiety than I do right now.
Yeah. What is it like to go promote an album? Like, is that part of your, there's some comics that I talk to, they admit they don't know how to promote themselves, and then others are really good at it. So where do you fall in that spectrum, and how are you handling this ramping up? Because we've got, now we're recording before this goes out, obviously, but it's still coming out before your album actually drops, and we're at 2 weeks before your album comes out. And I imagine you're going gung-ho in the promotions.
Well, I'm starting to. Once it goes on pre-sale, I'll be really obnoxious on all the social media. I'll probably lose most of my followers, and friends. So, yeah, hopefully I don't do that. But I'm trying to learn. Like, we're going to send it out, and hopefully people will listen to it and review it. Maybe they won't. I've had help from Mac Blake, who's put out an album and an EP, and I feel like I've gotten more comfortable with promoting myself, and that's one of those things that's like, thank God for Instagram, because that's a way that I feel comfortable promoting myself, whereas I don't necessarily on, like, the other outlets, but it's like, oh, here's, like, a picture of something, and then just writing words about, like, how my comedy's great, come to a show. It just feels so gross, and but it's something we all have to get used to.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to learn how. I feel like I've gotten better with self-promotion, and I'm trying to figure out how to promote this album. But I feel like booking as many shows as I can will help, because then I can tell people when I'm at the show, like, hey, I have this thing out.
Right. And
then, I don't know how else to, if you have any ideas, I'd be happy to hear them. Anybody listening, feel free to DM me.
Yeah.
Tell me how to get this thing heard.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, it's full court press. I think about other people that have released albums from here, and, it's just a big, big push, and it's a lot of work. And yes, we will get annoyed with you temporarily, but we know that this is, this is your blood, sweat, and tears that you're putting out for us. So, yeah, we'll get over it.
Yeah. I had somebody say something after, because I pushed the album recording show hard, because I wanted to fill the room up. And I had someone say, like, oh, that, like, art, who it was done by Harrison Hammonds, who's great, said something like, oh, that art was really great, and, I didn't even mind seeing it that much because the art was so good. And I was like, that's a very subtle way of saying, you did that a lot. You shared that so much. Yeah. It was a very nice way of saying it.
Some of the credits that you have are festival credits, and is that something that you still aspire to do?
I haven't been doing as many of the festivals. I feel like a lot of times, I don't want to say I'm in trouble, a lot of, like, the festivals are very fun networking opportunities, and it's great to go to a different city and tell your jokes. A lot of them, you spend your own money to get there. A lot of them don't pay, and then a lot of them don't have a ton of industry. I feel very fortunate that there is Moon Tower here that pays their performers and also has a lot of industry, and, it's such a huge festival. I would like to eventually do some more festivals. It's just hard for me to travel. Right. Just paycheck to paycheck, and and so I've just been more so lately focusing on, like, I want to go to New York and I want to go to LA and do shows there and see what that's like. And then after that, there are festivals that I definitely want to do that are, I aspire to.
Yeah.
But I'm because I'm paycheck to paycheck, I'm very particular about which ones. Like, I feel like I have to be pickier because I'm broke.
Yeah.
About which ones I'm going to apply to and all that.
And in the grand scheme, I'm biased, but in the grand scheme, the fact that Moon Tower adores you is a good thing. You know, they've had you on multiple times, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's great to be in Austin if you're, you know, the apple of Moon Tower's eye.
Yeah, they've been very kind to me, and so yeah, and it's always a blast, and I feel like that's such a well put together festival. Well done.
Yeah, really well done. Christmas is coming soon.
Oh yeah, that's coming up.
Yeah. I mentioned in my introduction how I love the Opzione Dos, and I love the Pretty Awful that you did with Katie Pengra. I don't know how active you are in keeping it up, but you still have a website, and one of your tags is you're an actress. Is that something that you're actively doing? Because I think you're so good.
Really? Oh, thank you. I feel like I'm terrible, but I hate seeing my face. Oh. It's hard for me to watch myself and stand up, and it's that much harder acting. Yeah. But I had a small part in a movie, and that got released a few months ago. I think it premiered at Austin Film Fest, I think it was. But, I should know this. But I had, like, a small part in that, and I really loved doing that. And that was so much fun. And there's something about film that it's just the most unique kind of tired I've ever felt, because it's just really fun. And yeah, I would love to do more of that. I'm hoping I get more opportunities. That director seemed to not hate me, so maybe the next thing he works on, maybe he'll remember me.
That would be great.
So,
yeah, some people talk about representation, and I don't know if that's something, because to me it seems like somebody that's in your situation, and I apologize for projecting, but it seems like somebody who has the limitations of you can't travel easily. Representation feels like it would open a lot of doors. And is that something with the 10-year career, an album opening and working with some of these pretty high-profile names, that is on your radar?
I would love some representation. It's one of those things that I feel like a lot of times it seems like you work hard at it, but you also have to get lucky and be seen by the right person at the right time, and they have to, like, see the thing in you that everyone is trying to show them. And so I'm hoping that something happens with that soon. Yeah. I definitely thought putting out an album would definitely open some doors in some respect, or get some kind of attention. I feel like when you're trying to prove to someone that you can do something, if you go ahead and start doing things yourself, you've kind of shown them, no, I'm serious, and I can put work in, and I can hold myself accountable. Yeah. And so hopefully that comes across, and someone will see that I'm a hard worker, and will give me a shot. That would be great.
I don't want to give the impression, and I feel like I'm telling you things that you already know, and that, like, the burden of, like, you're feeling the burden of these things that you have not gotten yet, but you've accomplished a lot in your time in comedy. I mean, you're very well respected in the scene. You have these comics who call on you to be by their side when they're coming through town. Do you allow yourself to give yourself the praise that you deserve? Oh, if you could only see the facial expressions that I'm getting. And this pause. Come on, Amber.
I'm in therapy, and I'm trying to get better at letting myself feel good.
Yeah.
And but it's I don't know why it's so hard. I had a friend the other day say something like, why is it so hard to just treat myself with some, or why is it so hard to be gentle with myself? And then I responded in a way that was like, well, keep trying, because it takes a lot of like practice and effort. And then I was like, why am I like, I'm not even there. Why did I think that I could, give that encouragement? But it's something that I'm practicing, and it's something that I'm trying to do, but I'm also, you always want to be more, or I always want to be more, and I always want to be better, and I keep myself up at night about things I said on a podcast 4 years ago. So it's hard. Definitely I'm pretty tough on myself at times.
Yeah. Don't be.
Yeah.
It's so easy, right? Just snap a finger and just don't be.
Yeah.
Be so hard on yourself.
It's just, it's so, and it's hard to accept compliments. It's hard for me to, I'm trying to get better at that. It's just, I want to feel, and right now, like, I've been having this conversation with me the last few days where I just have to tell myself, like, you should be feeling good right now. Let yourself feel good, because I've got other things that are just kind of making me sad. And I'm like, no, don't get sad. Feel good. You're supposed to be feeling good right now. Your album's coming out. So
yeah.
It's just a battle.
Yeah. Well, I certainly empathize with, when you're single and you don't have a family, it's easy to recover from hits and bumps in the road. But I think when you've got a family, it's like the bumps in the road seem to multiply. They get amplified. It's hard to recover sometimes. And if you're always tough on yourself, then, you don't, when you're focused on helping fix other people's situations, you don't spend time fixing your own. And so you just stay in that sadness or that anxious mode. So I've got a surprise for you, Amber. For the next 20 minutes, I'm just going to compliment you.
Oh, God. Oh, God. That's terrifying for me. Oof. You almost had me.
You're good enough, you're smart enough, and God dang it, people like you. An old SNL callback there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's just got to be really tough to work through. But you can do it. And the word of advice, because I'm a tough on myself personality too, but whenever I'm talking to somebody that's having a tough time and they're beating themselves up, I always tell them, well, you would never beat somebody else up with these words. You'd never say these things to one of your friends. So don't say that to yourself.
Yeah.
But, it's easy to give advice.
Oh, yeah. It is. And that's so true. And there's even times where I think to myself, like, I wouldn't want my daughter to beat herself up this way. So why am I showing her that it's okay to do that?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, now I'm beating myself up for that. Like, it just becomes this, like, downward spiral. But I want her to forgive herself.
Yeah.
I want her to be gentle with herself. I want her to, and she'll even call me out sometimes of like, why are you apologizing so much for this thing? I ordered her, one of her big Christmas gifts was she's really likes Billie Eilish, and I got her some shirts off the Billie Eilish website, but then I ordered it plenty time in advance, but then it didn't make it in time for Christmas, and I just felt like dog shit. And it was supposed to get here in time, but then there were delays, and I had to email them and correspond with them, and they apologized, but there was just no fixing the situation. So then when I got her for Christmas, it was like, oh, I'm so sorry. And she was like, it's fine. It's okay. Like, it's okay. And she had other stuff too, but it was still like, you just feel bad. And then, but that's one example, but it happens a lot where she's like, will you stop saying you're sorry? And I'm like, oh, I'm doing that thing. And even my almost 15-year-old is like, stop. So,
well, you'll keep going to therapy.
Yeah.
You're also about to release this album, and you're going to get a lot of praise. So you better, buckle up. Trying to think what else we can cover. Is there something else that's coming up on the horizon? The album, obviously, but anything else that you're excited about?
We're doing the album release show where I'm headlining Sure Thing on the 15th.
Nice.
Wait, 14th. No, yeah, 14th, the day of the release. And then I'll be in San Antonio on the 15th. And so, yeah, just those things and just kind of getting back to it.
Yeah, with those new jokes.
Yeah, starting over.
For the Sure Thing show, did you handpick who was going to be there with you?
I did not.
Oh, okay.
And as of the time of this recording, I have not.
Yeah.
That would be fun, though.
Yeah. All positive people.
Yeah.
To pump you up.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well, you're always somebody who has few words, so I'm not sure what else we can cover. We can spend the next 20 minutes of me complimenting you, if you'd like.
Oh, no.
I could tell you that we saw you open for Brian Callan. We are huge fans of Brian Callan, and I made special arrangements to bring my son, who's not 18, to that show. And I think it had been a while even since I had seen you. And I just loved your set that night. And he was super impressed with you. And it kind of made the entire night really, really fun for him. So.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Brian Callan was very nice. There are headliners that are very much like, oh, like, hang out in the green room with me. Let's be buddies. And he was definitely one of those.
Yeah.
And that was a treat. He was very, very nice.
Yeah.
And really funny.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, he's an actor, and people don't think actors are funny, but I've been following his comedy for years now, and so it was really, really cool. And he's always so nice to the fans too. Every time I've seen him perform, he does the photos with his fans,
okay.
so
Yeah.
it's really nice.
That is great.
Yeah.
There's some actors that come through CAP, and it's incredible to me how they can, work on TV shows and movies and do all these big projects that are time consuming, I'm sure, and then come in and do stand up and just kill it at that and have like a new hour from like the last time I saw him. And so Tone Bell is one of those. I think he's incredible, and he's so funny, and he's always acting and stuff, but then every time he comes through, I'm like, I've never seen all these jokes before, and he's just murdering with it. He's definitely one of those. I had not really seen much of Tom Green's stand-up, and he blew me away too. It was just like, how are these people good at multiple things? Yeah. And how do I do that?
You can do that. I just got through telling you I loved your web series.
Oh, right. Okay. I let myself forget that.
We need to get Katie out of retirement. And,
that would be great.
Yeah, we need some babysitters.
Yeah, we do. It would be great.
So we can get the two of you, because that was just such a magical combination.
Yeah, that third episode of Pretty Awful, I'm still, it's hard for me to say this about anything I do, but I'm still very proud of that. I'm still very, very proud of that. That was so fun to film. It was so fun to write. And I definitely think that was the best thing. I'm hoping to, like, write some more things. I have feelings that I can't put into stand-up that have been like, oh, I need to write something where I can put all those feelings.
Yeah.
And so I would like to write a screenplay or script of some sort where I can, like, pour all those things in.
Oh, that's
and
a great
like,
idea.
I just need to make people sad, you know, sometimes. And then laugh, but also, you know, I can't do that in stand-up. They don't like it when I do that, so...
I'll share one other memory of seeing you perform that just still stands out to me. I had been watching you for years, and I had always classified you as, well, she's not really dirty. She does talk about, you know, being sad a lot. She talks about being a teen mom. And I remember seeing you, and you had just started the butt plug.
Oh, yeah,
joke.
yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, she's getting dirty.
I feel like that's such a clean, dirty joke, too, because I don't really cuss in it.
Uh-huh.
I don't really cuss in it, I don't think, and I don't really go into too much detail. But as soon as it happened, it was just one of the most horrifying things that have ever happened to me. And I think I went and did Cold Town, and Karina was hosting, and I just went up to her. I was like, "Hey, this thing just happened to me. Is it okay if I talk about it?" And I'd not even really written it out, but I was like, "Oh, this would be kind of funny." And it felt like the joke kind of wrote itself, and so I just went up, and I was like, "Oh, well, at least I got a new bit out of this." Almost traumatizing thing that happened. So, yeah.
See the gift.
Yeah, the gift.
Something happens, you're able to turn it into comedy gold, and see?
Was it drama plus time equals comedy?
Maybe,
something like that.
yeah.
Something like that, yeah. So butt plug plus time equals comedy, I guess.
There you go.
Just a few weeks later, I was like, all right, I'm ready to tell everyone this deeply personal thing. And I had like a few friends there that came up to me and they were like, why didn't you tell me this thing happened to you? And I was like, it just, there's something about how it's easier to talk about it on stage than there is in like a conversation.
Yeah, you're not a terribly like open book person, so that's not terribly surprising that you would kind of find a safe place, which is on a stage.
Yeah. And it almost feels like the stage is Vegas, where it's like, well, it's not really happening if I'm just telling it in public.
Right.
But so that's a joke or story that I will definitely miss, that I will probably still pull out from the album from time to time, but that definitely that definitely is one of my favorite things I've ever written.
Yeah, but one of my reactions was, oh, this is really exciting. She's kind of going outside of her usual circle of topics and subject matter, and I thought, oh, this is when we start seeing Amber evolve and really like take risks.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it definitely felt like that. And I've had that story go very wrong. And I've had, and that was fun. That was a fun, just telling that like deeply personal story about something that you try sexually that it just goes wrong, and then you go up and tell it on stage, and you think like, well, maybe they can't relate to the butt plug part, but I feel like everybody has something where they're like, oh, I'm going to be adventurous, or I'm going to try this thing, and it goes wrong, whether it be in a sexual situation or any situation. Yeah. But I figured that would at least carry through. But there were a few audiences that were just like, nope, not having it. I don't. But I've had, and then I've had some great reactions to that joke where someone in the front row just went, no! It It was just my favorite thing that's ever. There was one guy that at that show, and I think this was when I worked with Jackie Cation, and it was in the Cap City in the small room, so you feel like you're standing on top of the front row of the audience. And he just did that, and I literally had to stop my set, put my drink down, and just, like, turn away from the microphone, because I was like, and then I told him, I was like, I've never broken on stage like this. I've never had an audience member make me laugh like this before, so thank you for that. That was a fun time.
Yeah, you are pretty composed. That's true. You're not a breaker. Huh. Wow. So you kind of dropped a little nugget of knowledge that sounds like this story is going to be on the album?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yep, it's definitely on there.
Okay, very good. So we're not, we've been very careful not to delve into it so people can listen to it on the album. All right. Well, anything else that you would like to promote?
No, just follow me on Instagram at Amber Bixby. Follow me on Twitter. It's at Bixbot, Bixbot. And thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay, so do you remember your future word?
I do not. I would love to hear it, though.
Possibilities.
Ooh, I like that.
You want to stick with it?
I think I want to stick with it.
All right, very good. Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham presents Amber Bixby. So you've covered social media. The album is available for pre-sale. Do we know the date for the pre-sale?
No, we're waiting on iTunes to give us a link.
All right.
It should be fixed by the time it better be fixed.
Okay, yeah, it better be, because the album is dropping on Valentine's Day.
Yes.
It's perfect Valentine's Day present, everyone. And shows, we can catch up with your shows on your social media?
Yeah, my social media. Also, I'm working on amberbixby.com, but if you go to wordpress.com/AmberBixby, that has my calendar, photos, other things.
Yeah.
And,
And you're headlining Sure Thing on Valentine's Day.
And I'm headlining Sure Thing on Valentine's Day.
Good date show. All right. Well, we hope you've enjoyed learning about how Amber got to be the comedic genius that you heard today, just as much as I have. Take those compliments, Amber. Come on. This has been Comedy Wham presents Amber Bixby. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Amber.
All right, thank you.